Warning, this video contains team selection and captain choices which some viewers may find offensive.
Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking at how my team did in Game Week 9, a quick word about OneFootball who have kindly sponsored this video. The world's best football news app is now even better, relaunching with a fresh new design. Gain access to news, scores and stats from leagues all over the world, with a brand new interface that's cleaner, simpler and smarter than ever. As for FPL, you can follow each team in the Premier League and get live updates from all the goals and assists every game week. Download it for free using the link in the description box below. Last week, I opted to use the wildcard for Game Week 9, so let's see how the new look team performed. I mentioned in my last video that in some aspects, a few of the players I wanted to include on my wildcard were probably being brought in a game week too early. And that certainly proved to be the case with Vardy, De Bruyne and João Cancelo, with them away to both Liverpool and Tottenham respectively. Of course, despite these difficult fixtures, I was still hoping for something in those games, and it was a dreadful start for three very expensive assets. But when including these three, I did have the longer term in mind, and their fixtures now from Game Week 10 onwards are much better. So hopefully next week they can start to do the business for me. Unfortunately, there were many more disappointments in Game Week 9, with Jack Grealish and new boys Martinez, Patrick Bamford and Ziyech also all blanking over the weekend. As mentioned many times with Grealish, Aston Villa have excellent fixtures all over the Christmas period, and the plan is to simply stay patient with their options during this run, which should pay off over the long haul. The initial plan last week was to keep McCarthy in goal, who despite conceding over the weekend went on to rack up a 7-pointer away to Wolves, so that late change was certainly frustrating. The reason I made that goalkeeper change is because I brought in Patrick Van Aanholt before the deadline instead of Matt Targett, a defensive differential that I spoke about in the last video. Granted, it's only been one game, but I do feel like Van Aanholt is probably the one real mistake I made on the wildcard. It was a poor performance all round from Palace, conceding in 7 minutes against Burnley, who had only managed to score 3 goals all season. If I knew for sure he was starting the next 2 games, against Newcastle and West Brom, then I'd still be very optimistic about his chances. But because of this poor performance, it does have me concerned now that he could get dropped again for Tyrick Mitchell, and it looks as if I may have given myself an unwanted headache there already. So a poor punt so far. As for Patrick Bamford, there are no complaints about his blank against Arsenal. The budget forward was once again very lively, hit the post and had a good few chances, so hopefully he can start returning soon. Despite the wildcard woes, there were some positives in Game Week 9 though, and one of them was having some captaincy success with Bruno Fernandes. My heart did sink when his initial penalty was saved, but luckily for me he was allowed to retake it and slotted home, collecting all 3 bonus points as well. In my opinion, it was a superb individual performance as per usual from Fernandes, who could have easily had 3 assists or more in that game. In my last video, I also mentioned the possible inclusion of Dominic Calvert-Lewin on the wildcard, a player that has simply been in ridiculous form this season, now returning points in 8 of the 9 game weeks so far. With him scoring that brace against Fulham, I was very relieved to end up squeezing him into the team. And had I missed out on his 13-pointer, that really would have been a disaster, especially with my initial option Ollie Watkins blanking. So for Game Week 9, it was a very underwhelming 56 points. Just 1 above the average, and therefore unfortunately a bit of a wildcard fail. Getting the average score this week basically saw me hold rank at around 2.2 million, still a long way off where I'd like to be. But the good news is I did set this team up with the long term in mind, and the squad now looks in decent shape for Game Week 10. So let's see how the new look squad is lining up for this weekend. Also, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider supporting my channel by dropping a like and most importantly getting subscribed to FPL TV. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new video goes live. Having just used my wildcard, the plan for Game Week 10 was always to try and save a transfer, and then head into Game Week 11 with 2 free transfers available. And looking at my current lineup, the team looks fairly strong enough to do that. Going into the game week without Mo Salah is of course a big concern, but it's Game Week 12 against Fulham where I'll look to get him back in, and all I can hope is that he doesn't go too big against Brighton. Manchester City still haven't got going so far this season, but I'll be hoping they can find their shooting boots again in the next 2 fixtures where they're at home to Burnley and then Fulham. The underperforming Kevin De Bruyne remains at a very low 17% ownership, and some big performances from him soon could really do my ranks some wonders. As mentioned, the only 50-50 headache I have in terms of team selection this week is whether I start Van Aanholt again at home to Newcastle. On paper, it's a fixture I very much wanted to own him for, and I think a home game against Newcastle always brings a good chance of a clean sheet. But my concern is, does he start? And the last thing I want is a late substitute appearance for the defender. On my bench, I do have his potential replacement in Tyrick Mitchell, but it's a complete guessing game for me on who Roy Hodgson gives the nod. I'll simply have to wait until the press conferences later in the week and see if that brings me any clues. With my team set up fairly nicely for Game Week 10, there's plenty of decent shouts for captaincy. When I wildcarded last week, I included Jamie Vardy specifically for the chance to captain him against Fulham, and that's still what I plan to do. Leicester's performance against Liverpool wasn't exactly inspiring, but the way Fulham are defending, this fixture is a completely different prospect. And seeing how open they were against Everton last time out, I'm hoping Vardy can do well in this fixture. The only small concern I have with Vardy is his lack of threat from open play recently, with a lot of his big chances and goals lately coming from penalties. For this reason, Calvert-Lewin has to be a consideration, and once again may be the sensible man's choice, simply due to his incredible consistency. I'm 90% sure I'll leave the captaincy on Vardy this week, who against Fulham does look to be the easy choice, but I'll weigh this up more over the next few days. So that's how my team currently lines up for Game Week 10, but it's important to remember that there are still European games to be played in midweek, and hopefully I don't get any unexpected injuries to contend with. If there are any changes, or if you'd like to see the final team lineup, then as always I'll post it over on Twitter shortly before the Game Week deadline. Good luck to you all for Game Week 10, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.